Biotic interactions. In an ecosystem, all parts of the ecosystem interact with each other. Living things interact with the non-living parts of the environment, and non-living parts interact with each other, and the living parts interact with each other. All interactions among organisms are called biotic interactions. In this section, the major types of biotic interactions will be examined, including competition, predation, and symbiosis. Competition. One of the primary ways that organisms interact is through competition. Competition is the use or defense of a resource by one individual that reduces the availability of that resource to other individuals. For example, a brook trout may compete for habitat by defending an area directly around a fallen log. When other fish attempt to move into this territory, the brook trout fights to hold it. If the trout is successful, it retains access to food and space. Fish that do not gain this prime habitat may be less successful in the struggle to survive and reproduce. Biologists recognize two main types of competition: intraspecific and interspecific competition. Intraspecific competition occurs between organisms of the same species. Interspecific competition occurs between organisms of different species. Intraspecific competition is very keen because members of the same species require the same food, space, and mates. For example, in many mammalian species, such as the musk ox and baboon, the males fight for the social status that will allow them to mate. Beech trees likewise compete for access to nutrients and water in the soil and for the sunlight needed for photosynthesis. In a population, the individuals best adapted to survive will pass their genetic material on to offspring at a greater rate than less fit competitors. Thus, intraspecific competition, a constant process in nature, is one of the driving forces of evolution. Interspecific competition. Interspecific competition is often less intense than intraspecific competition because individuals of different species do not compete for exactly the same kinds of food, space, or mates. However, when two species do compete for a certain natural resource, one will succeed in obtaining it and the other will not. This was demonstrated in an experiment conducted in the 1930s by Soviet ecologist G.F. Gauss. Gauss used two species of paramecia that compete intensely for one kind of food. The illustration shows the results of Gauss's experiments. Note that each species grew well in a separate culture. But when Gauss placed the two species in the same culture, the population of Paramecium caudatum always died, and the population of Paramecium aurelia always survived. Gauss's work and similar experiments by other scientists established that when two or more species compete for the very same resource, all but one will eventually fail a competitor. However, organisms have adaptations to minimize competition. Plants and animals establish territories or have different behavior patterns. The illustration shows one instance of adaptation of habitats that reduces competition. 3 species of warblers shown eat similar types of food and can occupy the same forest, but they differ in their feeding patterns. Each species feeds at a different height in the trees. Such behavioral adaptations greatly reduce but do not entirely eliminate the competition for food. Predation. Another kind of biotic relationship is predation, in which one organism feeds upon another. In an ecosystem, the relative numbers of predators and prey vary from year to year. Over time, however, a biological balance is established. Predators and prey are part of the food web of an ecosystem. Therefore, a change in the number of either affects the entire ecosystem. In some areas, for example, sheep are preyed upon by coyotes. However, coyotes also prey on other animals such as jackrabbits. Therefore, if ranchers kill coyotes to protect their sheep, a few more sheep may survive, but the number of jackrabbits in the area may rise, allowing them to compete with the sheep for food and other necessary resources. Symbiosis. A third type of biotic interaction, symbiosis, occurs when two organisms interact without killing each other. There are three varieties of symbiosis: parasitism, commensalism, and mutualism. Parasitism is a close, long-term symbiotic relationship in which one organism obtains its nutrition from another organism. The organism receiving the benefits is a parasite. The organism providing them the nutrition is a host. For example, the parasitic worms in the digestive tract of a white-tailed deer survive by consuming some of the deer host's own partially digested food. In time, the parasite's food consumption may be enough to deprive the deer of nutrition. This deprivation weakens the host, making it less fit to survive. In the illustration, you can see the effects of mistletoe parasitizing a mesquite tree. Commensalism. Commensalism is a form of symbiosis in which one organism benefits and the other neither benefits nor suffers harm. Epiphytes are plants that grow on other plants. Those are examples. Among these are the orchid species that grow high in the trees of tropical forests. The trees provide the orchids with the support to grow and allow them to capture more sunlight than they would on the forest floor. The trees are not harmed since the orchids neither feed on their tissues nor prevent significant amounts of sunlight from reaching their leaves. The illustration shows another commensal relationship between shrimp and a sea cucumber. The shrimp stays near the sea cucumber and receives protection from the predators. Mutualism. Mutualism is a form of symbiosis in which both organisms benefit from living together. For example, the enzymatic action of bacteria that live in the digestive tracts of cattle enables the cattle to digest grasses. By breaking down the cellulose in the grasses, the bacteria make it possible for the cattle to use the nutrients the grasses contain. At the same time, the bacteria take in nutrients for themselves, but not enough to harm the host. Both organisms therefore benefit from this close association. The clam and algae shown in the figure have a similar relationship. While the clam provides the algae with a place to anchor, the algae camouflage the clam, thus providing protection. References for this reading are from Curtis and Barnes, Invitation to Biology, published by Worth Publishers, Incorporated in 1981. Johnson and Raven, Biology Principles and Explorations, published by Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston in 1996. Tolley, Modern Biology, published by Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston in 1989.